Welcome everyone to Late Night with BS3. On tonight's show, we'll be talking about the Creating Young Minds recap, as well as benefits of home ownership with Clinton Killian, who's also my uncle. So we got a great conversation going on tonight, testing out a new platform. So those of you that are tuning in, please give me a thumbs up or let me know that you can hear me clearly. Trying out Restream. So it's a different platform that we're going to be testing out tonight. Also, we're live on BS3 TV on Roku. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. We have a great show planned. CYM is Creating Young Minds, and we'll be talking about their Undiscovered League. They had week 9 and 10. Also, they had a game last weekend, which we have highlights for, which was against the North Carolina Capitals, which is a team obviously out of North Carolina, but they're in a basketball league. I think it's the ECBL. So we got some great content to get into. Again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Let me get the show shared out here and make sure to follow us on all avenues of social media. BS3 Network. Put that right there. Follow us on Twitter and all avenues of social media, BS3 Network. And thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Like I said, testing out something new, seeing how this works, and we may go with Restream going forward. And let me know where you're listening from. And also, we do have a call-in line we're going to test out tonight. This is something fairly new that we haven't done before that we're also going to test here. So I'll put that number up on the screen if you want to call in with any questions or comments. So, like I said, kind of up in the game, trying some new things. Let me put that number right there. That's the call in number 469 290 4367. We'll see how this works. But let's get into the Creating Our Minds Undiscovered League recap week 9 and 10. And first off, before I get into the game too detailed, we had a couple of big things that went down. Had a couple of new players, new things. So for week number 9, we had NBA G League player Moses Sundufu. He played in the TBL for the Louisville Leopards, which is the Creating a Minds organization. And then on the 29th, which was week 10, they had Skylar White. He played in the top league in the British Basketball League, and he competed. He also was played in Portugal and competed, and he came from Washington State. The CYM organization met him in Las Vegas, so that was a one of the other new players. And Moses Sundufu's played, and I've talked about him throughout different times in different leagues that in covering Creating Young Minds. So let's go ahead and get right into week number 9. Also, we got some special highlights from one of the top players in this organization and league, Ruben Acosta. So be on the lookout for that. Wherever you're watching this, share it to a friend, share it to a family member, send it out to someone as we continue to grow this platform, BS3 Network. And thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Like I said, so really looking forward to get into tonight's show. So week number 9, which was the Team Steel versus Team Purple. And this one started off pretty close. It was 16-16 at the end of the first quarter. Going into the second quarter, it was also relatively close, 42-43. And I'm putting up on the screen where you'll be able to watch the game, CYM CYMTV.org. And then going into the third quarter, it was 61-66. That was with Team Purple leading. And then at the end of the fourth, it was 100-91. Team Purple ends up winning. Pretty competitive game, good back and forth, good play. Let's get to the stat sheet. Drew Harbor with 29 on the day. Keith Smith with 25. Amar Keogh Collins with 10. Cody Little with 11. Quincy Andrews and Shane Granger with 8 on the day for Team Steel. Going over to Team Purple, Jaden Richardson with 12. KT Boachman with 16. Zachary Hinton had a hell of a day with 30. Lorenzo Pearson, the fourth, had 16, and then Jeremy Burright with 18. Points off of turnovers, 32 for Team Purple. Points in the paint was identical, 68-68. Points off a fast break, that was 41-28 Team Purple. So it's really a good back and forth game. Newcomers tuning in, thank you for tuning in tonight. Trying out a new platform. So let me know if you have any issues either hearing me or any issues seeing me or anything like that. It looks clear on my end, so we're going to continue. But it was really pretty close game until you get to that fourth quarter, and Team Purple started to pull away. Biggest lead was 18 for Team Purple, so it was a good back and forth game. 17 lead changes. So that was the first game in week number 9. Let's get into the second game, which was let me get to let me bring up my graphic here. So Team Steel, Team Purple, that was for game 1. Now going into game 2, Team Blue versus Team Black. It was not close at all. Not close at all starting off in that first quarter. It was 22-9. Team Blue over Team Black. Going into that second quarter, 49-27. Going into the third, 68-37. And then going into the fourth quarter, 82-53. Team Blue really started to pull away. Let's get to that stat sheet. We got Jeremy Burright with 21. Austin Wire with 20. KT Boachman with 18. Richard Turner with 16. Keith Smith with 2. Ruben Acosta with 5. And that rounds out Team Blue, the winners of this second game. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking about the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. Go to CYMTV.org to watch the games. And you'll be able to watch those on Saturdays. It is 12 to 5. Go to that website. You'll be able to watch it. $20 a month. It's a really, really good deal. Competitive basketball. Also, you can follow them on social media, CYM or Creating Young Minds. And then go to creatingyoungminds.org to get more information as a whole about the entire league. So Team Black, going over to their stat sheet, Craig Fang with 16, Shane Granger with 11, Moses Sundufu, I brought him up with 10, Jarvis Hillary with 6, Cody Little with 8, 24-7 off of turnovers for Team Blue. I think that was a really big deciding factor there. Points in the paint, 60-28 for Team Blue. Fast break points, 12-9, and fast break points, 44-0 Team Blue. So that was a huge benefit there. And then going over to second chance points, 12-9. So big shout out to Team Blue with the win on the day. And that was game number 2 of week number 9. So some of the players in the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League for week number 9. Keith Smith, he's played in the CYM Undiscovered League Ruben Acosta, which I'm going to pull up some highlights of him. He's got a nice highlight tape. He played in Puerto Rico, played for New Jersey City University. Lorenzo Pearson, the fourth, played for Ottawa University. Richard Turner, aka Big Rich, aka King Rich, for CYM Undiscovered League. KT Boachman played for Butler Community College. Austin Wire for the Louisville Leopards. Jeremy Burright played in the TBL, also played in various countries. So big shout out to these guys and playing in the Undiscovered League. Jaden Richardson, UNT Dallas. Zachary Hinton played in Saudi Arabia. So these guys have really and honestly played all over the world, which I think what's make this league competitive. Moses Ndufu played in the NBA G League, and then Craig Fofang played for Texas A&M University Commerce. So in between, let's get into this highlight reel for Ruben Acosta. I think he's definitely a top player, smart point guard. Really has been doing this thing. So I wanted to definitely shout him out. Check this out. See that highlight reel and diamond guys up in that 3-point guard position. Let me give him a shout out, Ruben Acosta. Really has been doing this thing. So once again, we're talking about the Creating Young Minds Undiscovered League. Get more information, go to creatingyourminds.org. Also, to check out these games I'm talking about, go to cymtv.org. Coming up in about 13 minutes, we will have Clinton Killian. We'll be talking about benefits of home ownership. So you can stay tuned for that. We are trying out a new platform. We've been using StreamYard for quite a while. But checking out the Restream, seeing how this works, and seems to be working pretty well. I like some of the features. So let me know where you're tuning in at. Also, if you can hear me clearly or if there's any issues at all. We also have a call-in number that we are trying out for the first time. That is the phone number right there, 469-290-4367. And we will see how this works. I know also we have NBA All-Star Weekend, got the All-Star game coming up tomorrow. Also have the dunk contest and all those festivities going on tonight. All right, so let's go ahead and get into week number 10. Starting off, we had Team Steel, Team Black, and we'll get into the breakdown on this one. Team Steel down by 5 points in the first, 21-16. Going into the second, 46-35. Team Steel started to pull away. Going into the third, 72-53 team steal. And in the fourth, 98-60 team steal ends up taking the victory. Zachary Hinton with another big day, 37 points. Drew Harbor with 11. Jaden Richardson with 4. KT Boachman with 27. And Christian McCougal with 19. So that's your stats for Team Steel. Going over to the other side, it was really two top scorers. You had Skylar White, which I mentioned him earlier, and Idris Jenkins at 22, and then Ramon Tuck the second at 10. So pretty close when it comes to points from turnovers, 14-12. Points in the paint, 74-16. That was major for Team Steel. Second chance points, 23-9. Fast break points, 32-12. Bench points, 27-0 for Team Steel. So that's a major reason as to why Team Steel really did their thing. They end up winning the game. So just a couple of news and notes here is that in this league it is a running clock, so it's not your traditional where you stop the clock as often. Also, they're playing really fast pace. Sometimes the score is high, sometimes it's low, but it's definitely competitive basketball, and I'm always excited to be able to come on and cover this league. This is going into my second year, and it's really I think a great organization and what they do, and it's called Creating Young Minds because they don't only focus on basketball, but they help these guys and young men be better people. So not just the basketball aspect, but really helping them to be better members of society. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate here. Just sharing out the show to a couple other destinations while we are live. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the support of BS3 Network as we continue to grow. If you are interested in having your own show on BS3 Network, definitely reach out to us. I will have a clip that I'll play here probably towards the end of this segment. We have a nice promo video that I put together, so we'll show that here and as we kind of transition. So it's really, I think, major what this league does, and always excited to be able to talk about them. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the second game, which was a complete and utter blowout. And let me give a shout out to this last game, 98-60. But this last game here was a complete blowout. Let's start it off. Team Blue playing against Team Yellow, 24-9 at the end of the first, 57-26 at the end of the second. In the third, 75-40. And then in the fourth quarter, 105-51. Like I said, a complete blowout. Team Blue dominating Team Yellow. Points in the paint, 78-14. That's a major reason why. Fast break points, 47-2. That's another major reason why. And I think one of the other cool things about this league is that they also have drawn a blank on his name, but they also have a former NBA player, Jason Maxill, used to play for the Pistons, also played in the Big Three. He's a contributor. He helps coach in this league. Also, former NBA college coaches participate in this league. And then also, scouts are also active in this league as well. So they have a lot of different avenues and a lot of different people that contribute. And the guy that you heard yelling in the background, that was Mathis Crowder, who is the coach and also general manager, and he really does a lot of different things in this league. But that was him yelling in the background. He's truly passionate about what these young men do, and trying to give them the best opportunity. They've had different players go to different leagues, really all over the world, and that's a testament to what this league does. So last game of week 10, 105-51. Like I said, it was definitely a blowout. Let's get to the stat sheet. Team Blue dominated. Two big scores: Austin Wire with 37, Zachary Hinton with 36, KT Bochum with 17, Richard Turner with 11. Then going over to the other side, Shane Granger with 11. This is Team Yellow. Quincy Andrews with 14, Rick Curry with 10, Skylar White with 13. And so Austin Wire is a big man. That's a lot of the reason for the points in the paint with 37. Zachary Hinton also doing his thing with 36. Those are kind of the contributing factors as to why this was such a blowout. But I gave you the points in the paint, 78-14. Fast break points, 47-2. So those are some major reasoning as to why. Some kind of added players that we had in this league that weren't in some of the other games I mentioned. Rick Curry, who's also played in Romania, played for the TBL Jamestown Jackals. Talked about Skylar White, played in the BBL, British Basketball League. Ed Reese Jenkins plays for Tribulation Prep, which is a prep organization here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that was week number 10. Kind of a player of the weekend, I'll say, and then I'll get to some other highlights. But I have to go with Zachary Hinton. He had 36, had 37. The other game, so I mean, he's really been balling out every opportunity he's had. So I'm going to give it to Zachary Hinton. Big weekend, had 30 in another game. So he's just really been playing dominant basketball in this Creating a Minds Creating a Minds league. And also we had a game that I mentioned a little bit earlier with the Louisville Leopards playing against the North Carolina Capitals. They play in the ECBL. And so let's get to this highlight reel here of this past weekend. These guys really competing, playing well back and forth. Once again, go to cymtv.org. You can check out the content, also creatingaminds.org. So let's get shout out to AFI in Corp for the highlights. D-Lo produced it. Also does highlights for the CYM League. So this was, I think another big time couple of weeks for the CYM Undiscovered League. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause. All right, so we're going to kind of change gears. And while we're doing that, we're going to have a little bit of an intermission. And we're going to play the BS3 Network promo. So if you're interested in joining BS3 Network, we have content for everybody: comedy, relationships, sports, obviously, society and culture, spiritual. We have really some of everything. So this promo will give you everything you need to see and hear. And then we'll be right back with Clinton Killian talking about the benefits of home ownership and how that can impact you currently and in the future. All right, so that was the promo, and we are definitely interested and ready for more content and new content on BS3 Network. So let's bring in our guest of the hour, none other than Clinton Killian. Let me bring him up on the screen. Let's get this organized here. You can only see you. What's going on here? All right, hold tight. We are using a different platform what we normally use. So make sure. All right. As we're getting everything situated here, thank you everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe and share the show to different platforms. All right, there we go. I don't know what happened there. How you doing?
Hey, good evening. How are you?
Good, good. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I do. Welcome to California.
A place where I lived the majority of my life. Yes,
Yes, you did.
but
Um,
yeah, glad to get you back on the show. I had you on last year sometime. We talked about Deshaun Watson. We talked about the legal aspect of that and what's the future of that. He did not play at all. So just to kind of recap what ended up happening, he did not play the entire season, and now he is looking to get an opportunity with another team. So
well,
you were really spot on with how that went down.
well, here's your second point of free legal advice. You notice how the noise around his case has silenced down,
Yes.
that you don't hear the constant leaking anymore. You don't hear the sordid allegations anymore. Because
Yep.
now this case is getting to the point where the plaintiffs have to prove their case. And you can make any allegation you want, but it comes down in a court of law, you have to provide proof.
Right.
And as this case dwindles off the headline, I guarantee you right now he will play somewhere in the NFL next season.
Yeah. I
Come
agree. He's already
September, he'll
looking at.
be on somebody's roster starting quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. He's already looking at. Heard the Vikings. He's looking at, or that are looking at him. And there are a couple of other teams. So yeah, I definitely see him playing next year. There should be no reason that he should not play. So yeah, we'll definitely see what happens. But I have you on the show for tonight as we talk about the benefits of home ownership. For those of you that don't know, just recently purchased a home last year. Got a lot of great advice from Clinton, who's also my uncle. So I got a lot of advice from him.
Got
Also
a lot
reached
of
out to a lot
free
of
advice. You got
free
a
advice.
lot of free
Exactly.
advice
Yeah,
too,
let's not
because
put
I'm
that in
your uncle.
there. Yeah, definitely, definitely. But definitely buying a home, there's a lot of major benefits to it. But we wanted to kind of go over the basics for tonight. Also, like I said, we do have the call-in number that we're going to test out tonight. So for those of you that have any questions, or the chat line is open as well, so you can comment and give us your thoughts and opinions there. But why is it a good idea to own a home?
Well, first of all, I'm a real estate attorney here in California. I've practiced real estate law for over 30 years. And I will give you some overviews tonight, but remember, I am only authorized to practice law in the state of California. Every single state in this country has different laws that applies to real estate transactions. In some states, you have companies called escrow companies who handles all the funds and the transaction of paperwork. In other states, attorneys do that. They take all the paperwork and they take all the money. In California, we use escrow companies, but every state is different. But there's some very basic principles about real estate that applies to every state in this country. The first thing is buying a home for most people, and when I say most, I'm talking probably about 95% of the people in this country. Buying a home will be your largest single investment you will make in your life. It will also be your most valuable possession because buying a house is forced savings. Every month you pay that mortgage, you are saving money. And if a standard mortgage runs for 30 years, if you're making 30 years of payments, that's 360 monthly payments. You're saving a percentage of that every month. So unlike any other kind of system in this country, buying a home is forced savings. The biggest input you get from buying a home, you'll see the very first year, as I'm sure Ben can tell you his first year of owning a home, is your taxes.
Yes.
In this country, you get a deduction of the interest you pay on your mortgage. Uncle Sam pays the interest for you to own a house. So if you buy a property, at the end of the year, you will get what's called a 1098. That's like your W-2 form that you get at the end of the year from your employer. Well, the bank will send you that, and it will show you how much you paid in interest to the bank. That amount is deductible from your taxes. The way a mortgage works is a 30-year mortgage is standard. What they do is they take your principal and they calculate the interest you're going to pay over at 30 years, and then they essentially front load that interest. So about the first 8 to 9 years of paying on a mortgage, you're paying all interest. And in turn, the government is giving you that interest back. So you're at a zero liability for the first several years.
Right.
Because if you pay, let's say you have $1,000 mortgage, you pay it for 12 months, that's $37. The government is going to give you a tax deduction of $30,000. What you paid interest, the government gives you back. That's why owning a house is forced savings. Now, in terms of buying, again, this is going to be the largest investment most people make in their lives. Buying a home is not as simple as people because you, the homeowner, have to put effort in to make this work. The more effort you put into it, the better the transaction you're going to get out of it. And the other thing you have to realize is there are a lot of professionals involved in a house. And so excuse me, before you even start on the buying it, you need to start establishing relationships with these people who are going to be involved in buying the property. The first relationship, well, not the first, but one of the relationships you should make immediately is with a bank. Everybody goes, well, why would I want to do that? Because the bank is to give you the money to buy the house. Most places you only put down anywhere from 1 to 10% of the purchase price. The other 90+% comes from a bank, a lending institution. So every one of you who want to buy a house, you more than likely have a checking account and a savings account at some bank. That is now your bank and the most likely person to make you a loan.
Right.
So the first thing you do is go establish a relationship with your banker. And people say, well, I bank at a large, huge corporate bank like Bank of America or Citibank. How can I establish a relationship with them? It's real simple. Every branch is essentially a separate business. It's like a Kentucky Fried Chicken. That little franchisee, that little neighborhood branch bank is essentially treated by the corporate bank as an independent business. They have to fill out reports every week of how many customers they had, how much money they bought into the bank, all the things that every little business has to do. You're putting money into their bank every week when you deposit your check. That counts on their asset sheet. That makes you a valuable customer. Go meet the branch manager. Find out who is in charge of the loan officer who's in charge of home loans. And even if your bank doesn't make the home loan, they can give you good recommendations to whatever private lender you find a loan. So go make a relationship with them, as simple as going into the bank and say, look, I have an account here. I make regular deposits. Look at my account history and tell me what I need to do to qualify for a loan and what kind of information you need to qualify me and what I should be doing to make sure I can qualify.
Right.
When you establish that kind of relationship, now you have where the most money to buy this house is going to come from.
Right.
Next thing you do is you be sure you develop a very good relationship with a realtor. Now, realtors work on commission and they don't have a lot of time to hold your hand, but you need to have a relationship with them. Business transactions, despite this internet age, all boils down to your personal relationships. Find a realtor you're comfortable with. And what I mean by comfortable, someone you feel comfortable talking with and that you get the feeling they're going to work for your benefit. And be honest with them. Tell them, I'm not going to buy a house for another 2 years, but I want to make a relationship with you so that when I'm ready to buy, I got a realtor that I can rely on.
Right.
You can have your realtor, most realtors do standard marketing or consistent marketing where they have a sheet or a website where they list the houses that they're selling every week. Go on their website and look at them. The other thing that you do is figure out what kind of house you want and can afford. And in turn, look at where you want the house to be. Go look at neighborhoods and in the city you're thinking of buying in. And the best way to get used to that is not drive through the neighborhood, park the car and walk.
Good point.
Walk like you live there already. Notice things like where's the school my kids would go to? Where's the park my children are going to play in? You know, one of my friends always said, you live there already. My children, you know what he always does in the neighborhood? He counts the fire hydrants in the neighborhood. You know why? Because that's going to tell you what kind of services that neighborhood is providing. You walk 8 blocks and you only see one fire hydrant. Somebody didn't spend a lot of money for your safety and security.
Right. If it happens too far from that fire hydrant, then You got
Yeah,
problems.
you just lost your house.
Right, exactly.
So walk the neighborhood, get a feel for it. Understand the different types of neighborhoods that exist. You can live in an older neighborhood where each house was built differently by a different person. So you have different styles and different sizes, and different lot sizes, all of that. Or you can live in a planned development community, what we call in the industry a PUD. And what a PUD is a developer buys a big tract of land, he puts in the roads and he cuts up the lots and he builds a limited design number of houses on those lots and then he sells them to everybody. Well, yeah, you can get a house there, but is that the kind of neighborhood you want? Do you want something a little more older that has older trees and maybe not perfect little straight roads or all the neighborhood is not cul-de-sacs? If you want different characters, be sure you get what you want and start looking there. The other thing is be realistic what you're looking at. Yeah, everybody wants to live in the top neighborhood in a city, but the reason it's the top neighborhood is because it's not affordable to everybody.
Right.
So take the time to get to know the neighborhood that you can realistically live in. And then start looking at neighborhoods about how they're changing. As you walk down the street instead of driving, the neighborhood that you can realistically live in. And then and as you walk down the street, look at who's taking care of their lawn, who has children playing in their yard, who you see kids riding their bicycle. That's going to tell you who lives in your neighborhood. Also, it's okay to buy in a neighborhood that's not nearly as developed or up and coming and everybody wants to live their neighborhood. Because remember, those neighborhoods 5 years ago, nobody was living there.
Right.
It only became hot because people moved into it. So
Right.
you can be part of that wave that moves into a neighborhood and improve it, and in turn makes the neighborhood more valuable. So once you get a feel for it, now you're ready to buy. Again, if you have a realtor on your side, you have somebody there who's ready. If you've already talked to the bank, you can have your finances ready. And as you start looking at houses, the next person you need to make a very good relationship with is a contractor. Whether you're buying a new house or old house or a remodeled house or a house that needs work, you need a professional to tell you exactly what the condition of that house is
Right.
and to point out the things that you need to look for in the type of house you're buying. If you're buying an older house, you need to know what kind of wiring is in it.
Right.
Most of you probably never heard the term knob and tube wiring. That's wiring that was created like in the 1920s and it was in every house until about the 1960s. It's old and it breaks down. So
Yeah.
you buy a house with knob and tube wiring in it, there's a very good chance you're going to spend another $10,000, $15,000 rewiring that house in the near future.
Right. And also
Contractor,
to step in real quick, um, the house that I recently bought is a new build. And so when I talked to Clinton, that was one of the things he mentioned is getting someone that knows what it's supposed to look like, but also giving you the top uh the best quality house that you can have. And you and the homeowners aren't gonna know that 9 times out of 10. So you need an expert. So that's a really good point. And that's for new builds or older houses, because in our subdivision, there was a lot of opportunities that they probably took to use not lesser quality, but to use things that aren't that you wouldn't want in your house, because eventually they're going to end up breaking down. So that's a really good point.
yes. And again, if you live in California, as I explained to Ben when he was buying in Texas, you're blessed because we have probably the strongest real estate consumer laws in the country. There's a lot of things that you have to do when you sell a house to protect the buyer. Other states don't have those kind of built-in uh, protections. So you're going to have to take the step to protect yourself. And the best way you do that is you hire professionals. And
Right.
I always tell people a very simple thing. Number one, if you're having heart problems, you don't take the advice from your mechanic. You go see a heart doctor. There's a reason why they're professionals in their field.
Right.
And you have to trust the professional who's going to do what's in your best interest because you're paying them to do so.
Right.
And number two, that I tell my clients as well as anybody who's getting into real estate is real simple. Don't try to do everything yourself. Somebody says, well, this sounds like a case I can handle. My response to them is, yeah, you can also do your own brain surgery. You can go get a knife, you can sharpen it, you can get a video off YouTube, and you could sit at your kitchen table and study it and say, "Oh, I can do that." Well, I wouldn't advise you to do either one.
Yeah. 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 Just because you stayed at a Holiday Inn doesn't mean you can do brain surgery.
Exactly. So trust professionals to help you. Yes, they will cost you money, but the nickel you pay them now is going to save you dollars down the stretch.
Right.
So be prepared to put time and money into your largest investment you'll ever have in your life.
Right. Thank you, Sean Clinton, for tuning in. Similar names there. Also, Overton Claiborne, thank you for tuning in as well. The call in number is available if you want to call in if you have a question, and we'd love to answer that. We're testing out a new system and a new program tonight. But thank you, Sean Clinton, for tuning in. He's in California as well. I think he's in Sacramento. So
Okay. Now, the other thing, once you own the house, and if you currently own a house, once again, and I can't emphasize enough, this is your largest investment you will ever make. And so you have to treat it as if it is the most valuable thing that you have. The biggest thing that you have to do is make sure your title is clean. Title is the way you own the property. When you buy it, whoever you're buying it from, Joe Jones hereby grants this property to, and then it has your name. If you're married, it's going to have your wife's name. The way you hold title is vitally important. And how many of you know the difference between a tenant in common and a joint tenancy? I'll ask you, Ben. You're going to be my subject here since you're here and you just bought a house. Right now, tell me how you hold title to your house.
how I hold title to my house.
How does your title read?
I would say from the mortgage company to me.
No. I'm not asking you that.
Mm.
I'm asking you how title. Title is the name that's on it. Just like when you bought a car,
Right.
the title of the car is in your name. It reads Benjamin Southern.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Now you're married, so it reads Benjamin and Erica Howe. How do you hold title? Do you hold it as a tenant in common or a joint tenancy?
Joint tenancy.
You know that for a fact, or you're guessing?
I'm guessing.
You sure are. So the largest investment you're going to make in your life, and you have no clue how you own it. Go get your deed and look at it.
You're
Why
right.
is that important? Because those three words mean very different things. A tenant in common all over this country means this: two people own percentage values of the property. So if you and your wife own it as tenant in common, you own half, she owns half. So when you pass away, you have your half, she has her half. The joint tenancy means the property is undivided. You don't own half of a joint tenant. She doesn't own half of a joint tenant. What it means is, as long as you're alive, you jointly own it. If something happens to you, your name drops off title. She owns everything. She doesn't have to go to court. She doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Well, unfortunately, a lot of us have messy, difficult, broken families we come from. Some of us have been married more than once. Some of us have children from a previous relationship and not with the person we're married to now. If you're in a joint tenancy and you have children who are not related to your current wife and you pass away in a joint tenant, your children get nothing. If you have a tenant in common, then you decide where your half goes. That's why you write a will. So how you hold title is vitally important. And so take some time to understand how you hold title. The other thing that most people don't realize is every kind of debt you incur will attach to your property. And so you got to make sure your title is clean. And what that means is I just saw someone on here has my last name, as my first name is his last name. Well, what if Mr. Clinton over there gets sued and they get a judgment against him and they sell the judgment to a collection agency and they run Clinton through the database and they come up with 5 of them and one of them is my name. So they go to Alameda County where I live and they report the judgment database and they cut my property. I can get it cleared off, but until I know about it and until I take action to protect myself, there's a potential that that creates what we call in the industry a cloud-owned title. So you had no medical insurance and you got injured and you went to a county hospital and they said to you, okay, Mr. Sudrith, your bill's $1,000. You go, I don't have any money. I'm a sophomore at Morehouse and I can barely buy lunch.
Right.
No problem. Go home. And then they get a judgment against you or you sign something when they let you in. If I can't pay it, that you authorize them to take collection action. And now 20 years later, you now own a house and they have recorded that debt that you owed 20 years ago in Texas, and now it attaches to your house. That's what you have to do to make sure your title is clear.
Gotcha.
A realtor can help you get what's called a title report. So you can see if there's anything on your title that will affect your value of your property. And all kinds of things depending on what state you're in. Don't pay your parking tickets 20 years ago. Some states will authorize the city you got these parking tickets from to put a lien on it without having to do anything more. You didn't pay your taxes. I was a student. I was making money under the table. IRS sent me a bill. I didn't have the money to pay it, so I ignored it. 20 years ago, you owed the IRS $400. The IRS charges interest and penalties. That $400 is now $35,000.
Yeah.
Guess what?
That's one person or company that you do not play around with.
No. The IRS is worse than the mafia. Because at least the mafia will let you live so they can collect money from you. The IRS doesn't care. They will bleed you dry.
Right.
And so all of those kinds of little things you have to be aware of. That's why I always tell people, do not put your children or non-spouse people on your title because you bring every debt that they have to your house. When their name goes on title, all their debtors are on title too.
Yeah.
And they own that interest in your house now.
Good point. Now going into, the home buying process. So we talked about a lot of the benefits, but going into that home buying process, some of these things that you just mentioned, they're going to go through all of those things. They're going to go through the debts that you owe. They're going to want all of your check stubs. They're going to dive deep into knowing who you are. So if you want to touch on that aspect of it, and that's really the bulk of the process, was getting all your information and making sure that you were able to pay for this home, be able to pay the monthly payment.
So again, you start with your personal bank. You got to treat your bank as every time you're making the deposit in it is as if you're buying something at a store. Because the bank makes money off the money you put in your account. So you are a paying customer. Act like one and demand service like one. So again, when you're ready to buy a home, go talk to your banker and establish a relationship. They will run what's called a credit check on you. They'll give you a report that shows you have delinquent payments, you have unpaid bills. They will show you what's affecting your credit. Your credit rating is based on your ability and your consistency of paying your debts. Now, the more consistent you are, the higher your score will be. If you missed payments on credit cards, you got tickets you didn't pay for, all of that brings your credit score down. So there are companies called credit repair companies, and there's individuals that do it as well, who can help you clean up your credit. And some of it is a very, very, very arduous process. 20 years ago, there is a man in Nebraska named Clinton Killian.
Really?
He got in a car wreck. He fled the scene. He caused thousands of dollars of damage. He got sued. He got a judgment entered against him. I have never been in Nebraska in my life. And when I bought the house I'm in and they ran my credit report, they said, "Oh, you got a $20,000 judgment in Nebraska." I'm like, "How? I've never been to Nebraska. I've never been sued in Nebraska."
Right.
So I had to find out what was going on. I had to write this county and get a copy of the judgment. Then I had to show the credit company that this 30-some-year-old white guy named Clinton Killian in Nebraska was not me. And I had to write them letters and stay on top of it, so they removed it off my credit report.
But it was on your credit report that the whole time. But since that accident happened, it was on your credit report?
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, like most people, I don't run my credit check, and especially back then it was difficult and they charge you. Now they'll do it for you for free. In some states, they have mortgage brokers. These are independent people who secure a mortgage for you. Like everybody in this country has seen those Rocket Mortgage commercials, right?
Right.
And, LeBron James used to play in the Quicken Loan Arena in Cleveland, right?
Right.
Well, those are private mortgage companies. Those are not banks. Those are mortgage companies, independent of B of A and Citibank and Chase Bank. In a lot of other cities, you have mortgage brokers who are at a much smaller personal scale, who they will take all your credit information, prepare a loan application, and then they will go shop it around to other banks to find you the best loan. Just about every state has some form of mortgage broker, independent private mortgage people separate from a bank. And so if your city or your state rather has mortgage brokers, this is what you talk to your banker, you talk to a realtor. They're the ones who can refer you to somebody. And again, you start meeting and working with them well before you actually try to buy a house, because they can help repair your credit. They can get you the best deal. I've had mortgages at large corporate banks. I've had mortgages at small banks I have never heard of. but they gave me the best rate. And now you say, well, what do you mean by rate? So you see that little number they charge you, the interest they charge you right now, interest rates are low. Last year they were ungodly low. They were at 1.25% interest. What that means is on this money you're borrowing, the bank is only charging you 1.5% interest. So to give you some idea of what that means, the first house I bought in 1986, 86, 86, yeah, no, 87, I'm sorry, 87, my interest rate was 8%. And I thought I was doing great because 10 years earlier, interest rate was at 15%.
Wow.
Now it's down, now it's up to about three, two and a half, three. What that means is the bank takes the money they're going to loan you. Let's say it's $100,000. They calculate that interest rate for 30 years, 360 months. And then that's how much you're going to pay them back. So at 30 years at 3%, if you borrow $100,000 from the bank, you're going to wind up paying them about $400,000 back over 30 years. But remember, all of that interest, the 100% is the principal, but that 300,000 in interest, that's all tax deductible to you. So the interest rate means a lot because that's going to determine what your monthly rate is. And you want to make sure you get a rate you can afford to pay. The other thing is there's fixed rates, which means they're going to only charge you this amount of interest for the life of the loan, versus variable interest rates, which means it goes up and down as the economy goes up. Right now, inflation is running high or higher than it was. So people have a variable interest rate, their monthly payments have gone up. So again, because we're in these historically low interest rates, it's to your advantage to lock in a fixed rate. And then there's other things that they can do for you. For example, I told you about the standard is a 30-year mortgage. You can get a mortgage for 20 years. You can get a mortgage for 15 years. You can even get a mortgage for 10 years. What that means is you're going to have a higher monthly payment, but you're going to get it paid off faster. And you can play with that as well. You have a 30-year fixed and you've gone through it for 8 or 9 years. You've taken all the maximum interest payments out of it. So you refinance to a 15. Your payments are going to be lower because the interest rate will be lower than it was 10 years ago.
Right.
But that interest rate difference is going to factor out because you're paying more each month, but you're going to pay it off faster. And you get 7 or 8 more years of interest deductions to pay it off. So there's all kinds of things that a mortgage broker and your banker can explain to you what's best for you. It's all going to be determined by what is best for you, by your income, by how many incomes you have in your household, how many other expenses you have, and all the things that show that I can pay this loan off.
Right. And I think the biggest thing I think people have to realize too is you got to be realistic with yourself. Don't go into something that you can't afford. So that goes into obviously looking at your budget and determining what you can handle. And I think sometimes people don't do that. Now I know you talked about fixed, but isn't there also a flexible that people have gotten into that has gotten them in trouble?
Well, there's two types, there's two things you're talking about. As I explained, a variable interest rate means it can fluctuate.
Right.
So if the interest rates go up, your interest rate goes up and your payments go up. But the biggest thing that you're talking about is what happened about 15 years ago when the mortgage market collapsed. And the reason it collapsed is this: people did not have the money to make the initial down payment, or they didn't have the money income to make regular monthly payments at the rate a regular mortgage would be. So what the banks did was this: they said, okay, you want to buy this house for $100,000. It's going to require you to put down 5%, which is $5,000, and your monthly payments are going to be $2,000 a month. And you say, oh man, I'm looking at my budget, and they do your credit and everything. They say, yeah, you can only pay like $1,500 a month. So the bank said, hey, no problem. What we're going to do is let you pay $1,500 a month for 5 years, 3 years, whatever, 5 years, let's say. That other 500 that you couldn't pay, we're going to let that accumulate over here. And then in 5 years, you're going to have to pay off what is accumulated. That is called a balloon payment. Because rather than paying it each a little bit each month, you're going to pay it in 5 years off in one big lump payment. That's what a reverse mortgage is. It's basically just a balloon. You don't pay anything on it till you die. Then the whole thing becomes due at death. That's why your kids are scrambling around, because mommy and daddy had this house paid off and they took out a reverse mortgage and they never made another payment. But then when they pass away, the mortgage company goes, okay, come up with $200,000 in 6 months or we're going to foreclose on this house.
Right.
It's called a balloon payment because each month you blow into it and it gets bigger and bigger. And then when it's due, you either pay it or it pops.
Right.
So all of these kind of things are leery. And you got to be careful because there is no shortcut to owning property. There's shortcuts to getting in it. But again, you're talking about a 30-year commitment.
Right. It's not short term.
It is not a short term. It is your biggest investment. You will put more money into your house than you will a 401k. You will get better returns from your house than you will in a 401k. So you have to treat it like it's your most valuable investment because it is.
Right. Yeah, that's a really,
And
really good point. I think also is when they're trying to sell it, which is probably your realtor, like, well, you may get another job. You may get a raise. I mean, they're salesmen, so they're gonna try to sell it to you to say, hey, you may be able to afford this down the line, but again, you got to be realistic with yourself.
that is what you hit on, a very, very real life example of the point I was trying to make. That's why before you go into the market to buy a house, you establish a relationship with a realtor, because you're absolutely right. Your realtor is in the business, and the opposing or the person representing the seller realtor, they're in the business to make a commission. They only make a commission when the property sells. So quite frankly, they have an inherent conflict with you. Their job and their interest is to get the house sold as quickly for possible, as much as they can get for it. And your interest is to take your time and as much time as you need to make sure you're doing everything right and pay the least amount of money for it. That's a conflict. The way you avoid this conflict is you establish a personal relationship with the person you are going to use as your realtor. And that doesn't mean that every realtor is out to get just a profit. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you have a professional relationship with someone, they're going to treat you with much more respect than a stranger is.
Right.
So your relationship with a bank, your relationship with a realtor, your relationship with a contractor, these are what you establish now. And I don't want to forget one that you should absolutely have at least a working relationship with, because you're going to need them when you buy a house. And that is your insurance agent. because you're going to insure that house. So if it catches a fire or the earthquake knocks it down, or if you're in Texas and the governor doesn't let the electrical grid up to date and your house breaks down, you
Right.
need insurance.
Yes. Yes. That is 100% correct.
And you need an insurance broker who is going to that you can trust, who's going to sit down and say to you, Ben, this is what I recommend as your policy. This is what your coverage you need. You need to understand the difference between replacement cost and as built cost. You know what the difference is?
No.
Insurance companies look at your house, they say your house is worth $500,000. So we're going to insure it for $525,000. Ooh, more than what it's worth. So if that house burns to the ground, they're going to write you a check for $525,000. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with it? I'm asking you.
Not equal.
Why isn't it equal? It was evaluated at 500. They're giving you $25,000 extra. What's wrong with it?
It's something that you're gonna end up owing, I would think.
No, you're
Check
not
for
owing it.
more than
You're
just-
paying the insurance company. They're going to write you a check. It's going to have your name on it. You got $525,000. So you grew up in California. Let me give you an example of why that's not the best thing for you. What happened in Oakland in 1991?
Earthquake. Well, that was 89.
That was 89. What happened 2 years after the earthquake? The fire.
Right.
The fire burned. The fire in Oakland in 1991 burned 4,500 houses to the ground.
Wow.
Guess what? The insurance company went through the neighborhood. Oh, you were insured for this house for $300,000. Here's your check. Take it. Congratulations. Well, guess what? It it took $600,000 to rebuild the house because when you insured it in 1980, 300 would pay for it. But in 10 years, the cost of materials went up, the cost of labor went up, the codes of the city of Oakland, building codes changed, the equipment and technology got better. You didn't have that knob and not knob and knob and tube wiring. You now had insulated copper wire. All of that costs money. So to rebuild your exact house 10 years later is going to cost you more money than you took out in insurance 10 years ago.
So inflation. That's
It's not
the
even just it's not even just inflation. The siding on my house didn't even exist 20 years ago. My siding is called hardy board. Some guy in Portland decided that I can take sawdust and mix it with cement and I can make something that's hard and durable and waterproof and is better insulation than wood and paint. And it's called hardy board. And now it's sold everywhere. He's filthy rich and congratulations to him. But hardy board didn't even exist 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. The technology has changed. Look in your house that you just bought. You don't have those funky light chandeliers anymore. You probably got can lighting, which produces more light and is cheaper to build,
right.
but is more difficult to install. So the cost, so you can get replacement value insurance, which means I'm paying you a yearly premium. If my house burns, you are going to replace it regardless of what it costs. So if I got to get it upgraded because the building code says I got to have this kind of wiring now, my insurance company is going to pay for that. The cost of lumber has gone up. If I got to now grade the land differently, if I got to reinforce the foundation, all of that is covered in your replacement cost.
Yeah.
So everybody, again, if you don't have a good relationship with your insurance agent, somebody was just looking to make a commission, say, hey, Ben, Pilgrim Insurance over here will insure your house for $400 less than you're paying right now. And you go, wow, I'm going to save $400. But you're not going to have the same amount of coverage.
Yeah.
So you got to form these relationships with professionals who are going to keep your largest investment upright and functioning. And that's where the contractor comes in. Because if you own a house, as I'm sure you know, it's not like being a renter. When something goes wrong, you call the landlord.
Right. Yep. Oh,
Something goes wrong in your
Yeah.
house is calling you. Ben, wake up.
it's
The
all on you.
electricity just went out,
Well,
Ben.
Ben,
Wake up. And
Yeah.
you don't pick up the phone and call the landlord, you pick up the phone to get it fixed. So whether it's your contractor that you use to inspect the property, a young handyman or a small contractor, you need to have somebody you have a relationship with that when something is broken, they can come fix it.
Right.
Because unless you're good with tools and unless you got a whole garage full of tools, the likelihood of you being able to fix basic things that go wrong in your house is not great.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
really,
many things can go wrong.
yeah.
As Ben will tell you, what happened to us at Thanksgiving. Our old dishwasher stopped working. So the week before Thanksgiving, we bought a new dishwasher. We paid for the installation. They installed it. First time we turned it on, because they didn't install it correctly and they didn't open the right valves, all the water that went through the dishwashing cycle came out of the dishwasher and onto our kitchen floor. You know, water has to go somewhere. Water just doesn't sit there.
Right.
It runs, right? Well,
Right.
guess where this water did? It went through our kitchen floor and it leaked all the way down into the bedroom below the kitchen floor. So it took out the entire ceiling and all those side walls where it soaked in the drywall. And then it wasn't done. It got to the floor and it took out the carpet because it soaked the carpet. You know how much water a dishwasher uses?
A
This is
lot.
gallons of water soaking through one ceiling, through one floor, one ceiling, through another floor. And oh, by the way, we have a third floor below that bedroom. The water soaked all the way through there. So we had water on 3 floors of our house. We had 2 ruined floors, 2 ruined ceilings. Now, even if I was good at fixing stuff, there's no way in God's green earth that I could take weeks off of work to dig out all damaged material, price all the replacement material, and sit there and plaster drywall up and put new carpeting down and put new light fixtures in. You got to know people who know how to do that. Trust professionals.
And get it done right. And the prime example is our and we're within the first year, so we're still within the warranty. But the upstairs, which is game room, the way they installed it, they used nails to put the boards down instead of screws. So whenever my wife or my daughter's walking around upstairs, you can literally hear it creaking. So again, you have a professional come out and they say, hey, this is supposed to have screws and not nails. And as soon as they did that, you could tell the difference. But if you think over time, all it's going to do is continue to deteriorate. And my wife
Well,
she's always prepared. And she said, hey, we need to get a handyman. And I 100% agree with her. You're just confirming that. But yeah, I'm not an expert at doing anything, a handyman
exactly.
or fixing a house. So
Exactly.
yeah,
And
get
nails are
someone who
cheaper than screws. They're
right.
cheaper by the box
Yep.
and they're cheaper to install. A nail gun just goes pop, 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 pop. Well, there's no screw gun that goes pop, 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 pop. It goes,
Right. Exactly.
and then you go to the next one. Well, that takes time.
Right.
But you're right, it's a higher level of product. And a developer, a new home builder, his interest is to keep his costs down.
Right. Low. Yeah.
In Texas, for example, last year when you guys had your electricity die out in the middle of a freezing cold spell, a lot of people's houses were like ice boxes. You know why? Because Texas has no standard for the amount of insulation you need between your walls. So if they don't have a minimum standard of, say, R4, but you need 16, that's why you were cold in that house. Because R4 costs this much and R16 costs this much plus X.
Right.
So they said, well, we're going to save X by putting in R4. You can't see it because the walls are sealed by the time you see the house.
Exactly.
You don't know what to look for, but a professional knows just by tapping on the wall. They can tell how much insulation is between your wall. And you
Yep.
know, when I bought my first house, right, when you were a little kid peeing in a diaper, I asked the owner, what do you have in, is there in, because I bought an old house, an old Victorian that was built in like 1905. And I asked him, is there insulation between the walls? Oh, yeah, lots of insulation. I said, oh, okay, good. Well, guess what insulation he had put in between my walls? He had put newspaper.
Newspaper.
He just balled it up and put it, but you know what the studs are? You know, you
Yeah.
ever seen a wall? You have studs in every state. It determines how many inches apart studs have to be.
Right.
So imagine a space. A stud is 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches this way. And then it has anywhere from 6 to 8 inches this way. So imagine somebody put in one sheet of drywall at the bottom. They ball up newspaper and throw it down in the hole.
Oh my.
And that was the insulation.
Wow.
So if you remember our first house, when you would come there as a kid, you would see holes in a straight line all the way around the interior walls. You remember that? It looked like bullets. Remember? It looked like bullets that shot all through our home.
Yeah.
Well, what that was is I had to hire a company. So they didn't take down all the drywall. I hired a company. They would drill a hole into the wall, and then they would fill it with insulation, and then they would seal the hole back. So they'd find the stud, drill a hole, fill it up with insulation, close the hole. And when they finished, you could feel the immediate difference. It was no longer cold in the house
Right. It was no
because
longer
now it had
newspaper.
insulation.
Yeah.
But again, there's no landlord to call for this. I had to pay and figure that out myself because I now own the house.
About how much did that cost? Do you remember?
Well, that was done back in, let's see, what year was that done in? That was done in 85. No. Was it done in 85? No, it wasn't. It was done in 89. It's done in 89. So the cost of it in 1989 was about $2,000.
Okay.
But remember, the whole house I bought only cost me $80,000.
So there was definitely a difference in time.
Well, and that's the advantage of being in the Bay Area. That house that cost me $80,000 in 1987, when I sold it 10 years later, I sold it for $400,000.
Wow. Yeah. Huge benefit of
Home ownership. You're not going to get that from living in an apartment.
No, that's true.
And you're not going to get that for spending your money on an expensive car.
That's true. As soon as you drive it off the lot, that's appreciated.
As soon as you drive a car off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value.
Yeah.
So that's why a home is so important. Even in most cities, houses rarely drop in value unless there's an economic catastrophe throughout the city or state or country. When there's a depression, when the entire economy is down, if unemployment in your city hits 80%, not 80, but 20%, like it did when in some Midwestern states when they lost their major industry, yeah, that's going to depress your house value. But that's a catastrophic event. As long as there's nothing major crazy going on, your house is not going to lose its value.
Yeah, yeah. And a really great example where the house that we just bought is increasing in value before we even moved in. And it's a brand new development. It's in a city named Forney, Texas, which is east. But a lot of houses are being built in this area, and it's really becoming another major city. Frisco, Little Elm. We actually lived in Little Elm. We had a house there, but it's kind of a smaller version of Little Elm. So it's just growing and building. But you're right. You're not going to get that if you're renting. And I think even when you hear how much people pay for rent, that alone should encourage you to at least consider home ownership because it's almost equal or even
Most
more.
times, because most times you're paying less for a mortgage than you are for rent.
Yeah,
Because rent has to compensate the landlord for not just the space you're occupying, but for the maintenance and upkeep of it.
right, exactly. And it goes up every year, even if they're not doing anything extra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so again, this is going to be your largest investment. You need to be able to take care of it. And one simple way to learn how to take care of your house is learn how to do basic little things. Now, there's a maxim that our granddaddy, let's see, was he your granddaddy or your great granddaddy? He's your great granddaddy.
yeah,
My granddaddy taught me. There's a couple of basic things you don't mess with unless you know what the hell you're doing. One
right,
of them is electricity, and the other one is gas. If you don't know what you're doing, don't mess with either one
right,
because not only will both of those kill you, they can blow your house to smithereens.
right, exactly.
You know,
And
I was an insurance defense attorney for almost 25, almost 30 years. And we would see cases where people said, oh, the gas valve was leaking in our house. So I went to Home Depot and bought a new gas valve and I turned off the gas and I unscrewed it and I put the brand new valve on and I tightened it real tight and I turned it on and everything was fine. And then we go out to dinner and we come back and the fire department's there because the house is blown up. And why did it blow up? Because they didn't know how to seal the valve.
yeah,
They get that little white nylon putty and they wrapped it around so they didn't seal it. They didn't know how to do the soap test when you mess with gas, which is you rub a bar of soap on every connection. And if it starts bubbling, that means gas is leaking.
right, right,
Well, they didn't know to do that, but I guarantee you every plumber knows how to do that.
right.
And every plumber does that before they leave a job because they don't want to get sued for blowing your house up.
Exactly. And what was the resolution of what happened to that person?
Oh, well, he caused his own damage. Insurance does not pay you for intentional acts.
Stupidity.
Otherwise, if they did, when you wanted to get money or a new house, you just set your house on fire and say, hey,
Right.
insurance company, my house burned down, replace it.
And people do that. People
They
do that.
try to do that. But
Try.
insurance companies are not dumb. They don't stay in the business of giving money away stupidly.
Right.
And insurance companies don't cover intentional acts. Now, you can say that I negligently did it, but guess what? Insurance company's going to deduct for your negligence.
True.
So, again, learn what you're doing before you try it because this is your biggest investment. Just like you wouldn't take the money out of your 401k and say, damn it, I know those Bengals are on a roll. They're going to win the Super Bowl. So I'm going to take my 401k and I'm going to bet it all that they're going to win. And when I come back at 4-1 odds, I'm going to have 4 times in my 401k and I'm going to put every penny of it back in the 401k.
Yeah, see how
It
that works.
always work that way.
No, no, definitely don't bet it on sports because you never know what's going
Well,
to. Yeah,
but anyway, so real estate is not complicated in the sense that there's not something that the layperson there is parts of it that a layperson can understand, but it requires diligence and it requires trusting professionals. So in this talk, just count on your fingers how many professionals I told you should be in touch with when you're starting to buy a house and own a house. You got your banker,
quite a few.
you got your mortgage person, you got your real estate agent, you got a contractor, you got your insurance person, and you got a basic handyman person. So that's 6 people that you are relying on and you have to trust.
Right,
So spend the time right now to develop those relationships because you'd rather do business with somebody you know and can trust than a total stranger, right?
right, exactly. Yeah,
I
you would
mean,
trust them a lot more than if it was somebody you just met.
right. Or
So,
somebody you just found on the internet.
right,
You don't go on the internet and say, "Oh, I need heart surgery. Let's see who I can find on Google who will give me a good deal on it. Oh, here's Dr. Yahoo. He's gonna give me heart surgery for 40% off."
right, exactly. You're gonna want the best person because it's your life, and so
Right.
that's yeah, really.
And you're gonna go to the person you've developed a relationship, either directly or your doctor says, go to Dr. Smith because I've worked with him. I know his reputation. I know how he works, and he's gonna do the best job possible.
Right, right,
So you do the same thing with buying a house.
right.
So the last thing I want to say, unless you have any more to say or a question, anybody who owns a piece of property right now, go get your deed and look at how you own the property. And if you have any type of disjointed relationship, and what I mean by that is you've been married more than once, you have children by more than one person, your wife has children that you're not the biological father of, any of those kind of situations, go see an attorney and write a will. Because if you don't, in virtually every state, your children are going to lose out. And you say, yeah, but I'm 35 now and I'm not really worried about what happens when I'm 80. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. That's 100% true. And great information tonight. Once again, Clinton Killian, benefits of home ownership. Um, very, very valuable information. And these 6 people that he mentioned, you definitely need to build a relationship with because at some point you're going to need them. Early on, you're going to need half of them. So, and if it's a new build or an older home, you definitely want to get that looked at. So, thank you for coming on tonight. This is the first installment, kind of going over the basics. We will also continue to have this conversation because there's a lot of benefits to owning a home, but there's also a lot of different things in real estate. I know you have a lot of expertise in that. So, yeah, thank you for coming on the show tonight, and great to get you back on.
Well, you're welcome. And what you and I talked about, the next issues we can discuss is things like how do you hold title and ownership of a business? How do you have a business where you're dealing with real estate, whether you're buying it or representing people to buy it or owning it as rentals or whatever you're doing with it? There's all kinds of things you need to know before you say, oh, I got some extra money. Let me go buy this.
Right, right.
So I'll be happy to. I'm very impressed and thrilled by how you have expanded your network. You know, I used to watch you just to hear about sports and all your game discussions. Although I have to admit, a lot of the music you guys talked about, I had no clue who you were talking about. But it was very entertaining. And now you have branched out into all these different areas, and I love it. And the beauty of it is, I got a Roku TV, of what's it called, a 4K TV, but it's made by Roku. So
Right.
Ruku's already built into it. And
Yep.
as soon as you got this your BS3 network, I called you and asked you, how do I download this? It took me all of 5 seconds.
Yep.
And once I download it, it's my favorite station now. I watch your show, your station, your network every evening when I come home because there's something always there that is entertaining and relaxing and I can watch after a hard day at work, and it's all free. So I enjoy it. So thank you for the wonderful content you provide and all the very, very, very interesting guests and shows that you have on your network. Um, for example, I just found it amazing to watch church from a church in Dallas as I'm sitting right here in Oakland, California.
Right. Right. That's the amazing flexibility of what we're able to do here. So, and like I played the promo, we're interested in new shows, new content. We definitely want someone for something for everybody, like you just said. So it's great, awesome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, all right. Well, you have a good night, and thank you everyone for tuning in tonight to Late Night with BS3. And you have a good rest of your night.
Good night, everyone.
All right, that was Clinton Killian, which is my uncle. Also, I wanted to say, and I meant to say this when he was on, but happy birthday to my grandmother, his mother. She turned 87 today. So happy birthday to you, Grandma Hall. We love you. Gave her a call today, and always great talking to her. She has the one of the best personalities around and one of the best cooks around. Now, I can't say the best because I have a wife and a mother. So I got to be careful who I say is the best. But she's definitely in the top three. I'll leave it at that. And yes, BS3 Network is on Roku. It's very easy to do. When you go to your Roku TV or device, you go to your search, you type in BS3 space TV. From there, you're able to download the channel, and then it is on your TV as an app. So your TV has apps. So HBO Max, if you have that, Showtime, YouTube TV, the different apps that you have, and BS3 TV is one of those apps. You're able to go to the channel. Like I said, there's content for everybody. We have on demand, live content. If you go to the channel right now, I am actually on the screen right now. I actually have it on right behind me, behind my laptop. So you can definitely see it, and there's a lot of great content there. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Tune in on Monday to the forecast. This is a show with myself, Wilkes, H-Rap, and Ivan Dawkins, and we review movies, documentaries, and films really like you've never seen before, completely different way. And coming up on Monday, we'll be reviewing the 2019 film Just Mercy, which is a really good film starring Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan. So stay tuned for that. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. We will continue to have content coming out every single day. And you have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday.